Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really tearing up the syllabus, challenging pretty much everything you might think about higher education.
Yeah, we're diving into some fascinating source material. It's basically this academic's manifesto about ditching traditional lectures altogether.
And the starting point is so relatable. The big claim is lectures. They're obsolete for how we learn now.
Right. The author even says they stopped lecturing years back, and it wasn't just philosophy.
It was burnout from seeing students just scrolling, not engaging, just phones out.
That picture, that disconnect, it's powerful. It signals that the old way, that sort of industrial era model, it's just not working anymore.
Exactly. But this isn't just complaining, is it? There's a whole system proposed here.
No, not at all. It's constructive. Our mission today is to really dig into this alternative learning system. It's designed to spark autonomous growth, self-directed learning.
Okay. And the goal?
The goal is for students and the instructor to genuinely create knowledge together, that's the phrase they use, through things like environmental traces and, interestingly, discomfort.
Discomfort, okay.
Yeah.
And there's a core idea about effort. Right?
Absolutely. We should probably nail this down right away. It's called reciprocal intensity. Think of it like a contract.
A contract? How so?
Well, the source promises real transformation, real change, but only if both sides step up massively. The instructor needs like 3 times the prep.
3 times? Wow.
Yeah. And the student has to deliver really thoughtful, complex work. If one side flakes, the whole thing kind of falls apart.
So it hinges on that mutual effort. And the system itself, the methodology, is called trace pedagogy.
That's the one, trace pedagogy. The core idea is that knowledge isn't just transferred like pouring water into a jug. It emerges.
Emerges from what?
From environments that are intentionally set up and from what happens when prepared people collide. That's their term. Collide with each other with materials left for them.
Okay, so why make such a radical shift? What's fundamentally wrong with the lecture model, according to this?
Well, the argument is that our current systems, the ones most of us went through, they were built for the industrial era.
Right. Standardization, efficiency, churning out workers.
Exactly. Compliance. Mass production of, adequate workers. And that's just totally wrong for today's world, which is all about rapid change, complexity.
You need something more adaptable, something that values discovery.
Precisely. So if the old model was for standardized output, who is this trace pedagogy actually for? Who benefits most?
Good question. Is it for the star students or the ones falling behind?
It's interesting. The author is really clear here. It's not focused on the outliers. Not the geniuses will succeed anyway, and not the few who are just completely disengaged.
Who then?
The focus, the real passion, is for the median student.
The average student.
Yeah, but maybe average isn't the right word. It's the student who shows up, who wants to do better, has potential, but needs the right kind of environment, the right structure to really ignite that potential.
That's where the effort goes. Okay.
That's where the energy is directed.
And I was struck by the expectations they set. It's not just about getting everyone to pass.
No, far from it. The whole structure is built on the idea, the possibility that every single student can perform at the highest level, like truly world-class university-level work.
That's a huge vote of confidence compared to just aiming for the middle or managing failure.
It's a fundamental shift in perspective, believing in that potential across the board.
So how do they actually make that happen? You mentioned a framework.
Right. To make that belief operational, they use a framework with 3 core parts all working together.
Okay, what are they?
The flipped classroom, which handles the structure. Then self-organizing learning environments, or SLAs, for the content. And finally, this new concept called Metamarks, which acts as the catalyst.
Okay, let's unpack those. Component 1, the flipped classroom. We've heard of that, but how is it used here structurally?
So structurally, it tackles the basic problem. Lecture time is limited and often, frankly, inefficient for just delivering info.
Right. So you flip it. Prep happens before class.
Exactly. Class time stops being passive listening and becomes an active workspace. Collaboration, discussion, problem solving, because the groundwork's already laid.
But, the common criticism of flipped classrooms is that students just don't do the pre-work, or they do it superficially.
Ah, yes. And this system has a very specific answer to that. It ties back to that reciprocal intensity idea.
Ah,
The pre-class work isn't optional background reading. It's graded weekly research-based responses. And crucially, completing this is the entry requirement for even participating meaningfully in the class discussion.
the entry requirement. So if you don't do it,
You show up unprepared to a conversation where everyone else has already dug in, shared insights, maybe even shifted the direction of the discussion. You're behind.
ooh, that's, yeah,
Yeah.
intentional discomfort.
Oh, it's built right into the architecture. It makes preparation non-negotiable if you want to be part of the learning.
Okay, so flipped classroom provides the structure enforced by that entry requirement. What about the content itself? That's component 2, SOLEs.
Right, self-organizing learning environments. This part determines how content is delivered, or maybe how it's encountered.
How does that work? Does the instructor just throw resources out there?
It's more guided than that. The instructor doesn't micromanage the learning path. Instead, they might pose a big, open-ended question, something like, what drives persistent global inequity?
A huge question.
Exactly. Then they provide categories of high-quality, pre-vetted resources, maybe on historical trade policy, or algorithmic bias today, or political economy texts. The student then chooses their path, which angle to take, which resources to focus on, based on their interests and emerging questions.
That sounds incredibly autonomous, almost intimidatingly so, especially if you're used to just being told what to memorize.
It can be, absolutely. And that's a real risk, right? Students feeling lost or directionless.
So how do they stop that from happening?
This is where the instructor's role is key, but different. They provide what the source calls tailor-made scaffolds.
Scaffolds, like supports.
Exactly. Structured frameworks. They might offer explicit guidance on certain skills needed, specific questions to consider within a topic, or even examples of really strong previous work to show what excellence looks like.
So it's autonomy, but within clear guardrails. Radical autonomy, but supported.
Precisely. Held within intentionally designed boundaries to make sure the student's exploration is productive and leads to quality input.
Okay. Structure, content. What was the third piece? The catalyst.
Metamarks, component 3. This is maybe the most novel part.
Metamarks, what exactly are they?
Okay, think of them like digital breadcrumbs, maybe? But with a twist, they don't just show where you've been.
Well, they do then.
They create a new, clearer, maybe even more interesting path for everyone else who comes after. They are the traces students leave behind a sharp analysis, a really insightful question, a connection no one else saw.
Ah, environmental traces.
Exactly. And these traces are designed to trigger more learning autonomously, reproducibly, scalably, both for the student who left the trace and for everyone else in the environment.
You know, what's really striking is that the classroom experience sounds very student-led, almost hands-off for the instructor.
Right. It looks that way during the class session itself. Lots of student discussion, collaboration.
But you mentioned the instructor's workload is huge. It's this continuous two-way exchange. So what's happening behind the scenes?
Oh, well, that's the hidden part of the reciprocal intensity. What you see in class is just the tip of the iceberg.
So what's the instructor actually doing?
A ton of work. They have to review every single piece of student output submitted before class, every response, every comment sometimes.
Every single one.
Yes. They're analyzing it all, looking for patterns, seeing what ideas are gaining traction in the group, spotting misconceptions before they take root.
And
then, based on that deep analysis of the student's actual current understanding and questions, they restructure the entire plan for the next class session.
so they're constantly adapting the course based on student input.
Constantly. It's real-time curriculum adjustment driven by the collective intelligence emerging from the student's work.
Which explains that 3 times the prep work figure you mentioned earlier, compared to just delivering the same lecture again.
Exactly. You can't just recycle last year's lecture notes when the core material is the unique, complex contributions from this specific group of students right now.
That sounds intense. Which brings up a practical point. Can a system like this actually scale? Can a big university run many courses this way? Or is it always going to be a boutique thing?
That's a really important question, and the source is honest about it. It is a limitation. That 3 times prep requirement is real.
So, probably not feasible department-wide without major changes.
Currently, yeah. It seems to require significant institutional support, like smaller class sizes, maybe different workload models, or just an extraordinary level of commitment from the individual instructor. It's definitely positioned as quality over quantity, at least for now.
But that intense commitment is what powers the whole thing. Okay, let's talk tech. AI comes up. How does it fit in? Are students just using ChatGPT to write their responses?
Well, they can use AI tools. They're actually welcomed, encouraged even, to use them for leverage.
But how do you ensure they're not just outsourcing the thinking?
The assignments are designed specifically to require intellectual work that AI, at least currently, can't just replicate wholesale. And the instructor mentions developing AI detector superpowers.
Superpowers, meaning they can spot AI-generated text.
Partly, but it's more about understanding how students might use AI. They don't just ban it, they actually teach specific techniques using AI,
Like what?
like reverse engineering prompts, taking an AI output and figuring out what kind of detailed prompt was needed to get it, then refining that prompt to push for something much more insightful.
So using AI as a tool, not a crutch, turning it into a thinking partner.
Exactly. Or using it for collective excitation, like AI-assisted brainstorming sessions where it helps generate diverse ideas quickly. Or even getting students to build custom AI prompts that act as personalized scaffolds for their own learning goals.
That does sound different, more integrated.
Yeah, it reframes the student from just being a passive recipient of information to someone who's actively prompting, directing, architecting their own knowledge construction, sometimes with AI.
I saw a student quote in the material calling the teaching style very futuristic, like Star Trek-type learning.
Yeah, that captures the feeling of it being quite different from the norm.
Okay, let's circle back to Metamarks. You said they were the catalytic element.
Yeah.
What makes them so revolutionary compared to, say, just getting a grade on an essay?
One word: transparency.
Transparency. How so?
Think about traditional assessment. Your exam, your paper, it's usually hidden. Only you and the instructor see the detailed feedback. Maybe the grade is posted somewhere.
Right, it's pretty siloed.
Metamarks are the opposite. They operate in full view of the entire class. Everyone sees the contributions, the traces being left. They see how individuals are progressing, how the collective understanding is advancing.
Everyone sees everything. That sounds exposed.
It is. And that visibility has a powerful effect. It creates what the source calls progressive assessment, not just a single snapshot grade. You see learning happening over time.
And how does that incentivize students?
Well, it strongly encourages high-quality contributions.
Yeah.
Because you quickly realize your own learning, your ability to build on ideas, depends partly on the quality of the traces everyone else is leaving.
So individual progress is linked to the collective good.
Exactly. And because it's all transparent, the system feels demonstrably fair. Nothing's hidden. It fosters this kind of positive peer pressure, almost.
You mentioned earlier that these traces make learning exponential. How does that work?
Right. Think additive versus exponential. Additive is like you do assignment 1, then assignment 2, then 3. They're separate tasks. Exponential is when your output from assignment 1, that metamark you leave, actually changes the starting point or the environment for assignment 2, not just for you, but for everyone.
So my insight helps someone else build their insight.
Precisely. Student A connects, say, the printing press history to modern data scarcity. That trace, that connection, is now in the environment. Student B sees it, builds on it, takes it further. The collective intelligence grows much faster than individuals working alone. Your output literally modifies the learning space.
Okay, I can see the power in that. But what if the traces are wrong? If someone leaves a misleading analysis, couldn't that poison the well for everyone else?
That's a really important challenge. Traces can mislead. Poor analysis, misconceptions, if they're visible, they could potentially propagate.
So what's the fix?
Constant, open, honest, constructive feedback. It has to be woven into every single class session. The instructor plays a crucial role here in guiding, correcting, questioning.
And creating a safe space to be wrong, I guess.
Absolutely critical. Psychological safety is paramount. If students are terrified of leaving a wrong trace, they'll stop leaving traces altogether, and then the whole engine of learning just stops.
Yeah, makes sense. Now, tied into this idea of pushing boundaries and maybe being wrong sometimes, there's something called the scary project.
Yes, the scary project. This is like the capstone experience designed to really operationalize all these ideas.
What is it?
It's a semester-long, largely self-directed project. The key requirement is that the topic or goal must be something that genuinely, simultaneously frightens and excites the student.
Frightens and excites. Why scary?
Because that's where real growth happens, right? Pushing into uncertainty. It's designed to cultivate specific mindsets.
Which are?
1, grit that sustained commitment to a challenging long-term goal. 2, a growth mindset, seeing the inevitable obstacles not as dead ends, but as learning opportunities. And 3, divergent thinking, finding creative, non-obvious paths forward.
And how do traces fit into the scary project?
Students have to document the process, not just the final product. The struggles, the wrong turns, the pivots, the moments of insight, all of that becomes part of the trace they leave, reinforcing their own learning and potentially informing others facing similar challenges.
So let's synthesize this. What does this whole system ultimately demand from the student? It sounds like a lot.
It demands pretty much everything, yeah. You have to do the outputs thoroughly, you have to engage actively in the conversation. Passivity just doesn't work here.
And there was one policy mentioned as the least popular.
Ah, yeah. The fact that participation is heavily conversation-based, it requires students to be visible and audible.
Meaning cameras on, mics unmuted, in an online setting, for example.
Essentially, yes. You need to be present, actively contributing, modifying that shared environment with your voice, your ideas. You can't just lurk.
That visibility requirement,
Mm-hmm.
it links back to the instructor side of the deal, right? The reciprocal intensity.
Exactly. The instructor needs to see and hear the engagement to provide meaningful feedback. If students are putting in intense effort, leaving detailed traces, the instructor absolutely must match that with deep, insightful feedback.
Superficial comments would just kill the whole thing.
Instantly. It breaks the trust, breaks the contract. It signals the instructor isn't really valuing the student's unique input. So quality feedback fuels quality work and vice versa. But the effort on both sides is constant and high.
Now, the source material is quite candid at this process.
Yeah.
It isn't always fun, is it? The transformation isn't smooth.
Not at all. Students apparently admitted feeling a lot of uncertainty, even anxiety, especially early on. Many said it took well past the middle of the semester before they actually started to enjoy the difficulty.
Which makes sense. Real intellectual growth often is uncomfortable. This system just seems to lean into that friction instead of avoiding it.
It fully embraces it as necessary for genuine change.
And one student apparently described the instructor not as a teacher, but as a monk,
A life coach who grades.
a life coach who grades. That's a fascinating description. It completely reframes the relationship.
It really does. It shifts it from purely evaluative to more developmental, more guiding.
And does this intense, uncomfortable process actually pay off? What are the results?
The reported results are pretty striking. Students mention dramatic improvements in things you might expect, like time management, because the system forces discipline, but also fixing ingrained bad habits.
And skills.
Yeah, organically developing those crucial 21st century skills, interpersonal communication, critical thinking, real team collaboration, they just happen naturally because the structure requires them for success. You have to lead, coordinate, debate respectfully.
And it connects to the real world too, right?
Mm.
The assignments aren't just academic exercises.
Not at all. Every assignment, including that scary project, tackles urgent, real-world problems. Things like financial literacy or complex sustainability challenges or analyzing geopolitical risks. They finish the course able to lead complex, nuanced discussions on important topics.
And professionally, did it help them get jobs?
Apparently, yes. The source mentions multiple graduates landing positions where the employers specifically pointed to the skills developed in this course.
Really? What skills?
Things like their collaborative problem-solving approaches, the way they integrated AI tools thoughtfully, the frameworks they learned for tackling messy, complex issues, skills that employers are desperately looking for. #hack outro.
So, wrapping this up, the core insight from this deep dive seems to be that genuine transformation happens for those students willing to commit, willing to navigate this really demanding structure, and crucially, tolerate that intentional discomfort.
Yeah, they move beyond just consuming information passively. They become active builders, active shapers of their own learning environment.
It really challenges the whole definition of learning.
It does. This trace pedagogy suggests that maybe true mastery isn't about getting knowledge from an expert. Maybe it's about the messy, active process of building a shared, knowledge-rich environment with your peers.
And the final question for you, the listener, is, are you willing to make that kind of commitment? That intense, sometimes uncomfortable commitment to yourself and to the collective?
A profound question to ponder. It's about what kind of learning you truly value.
Absolutely fascinating. If this discussion on Metamarks, reciprocal intensity, and maybe building your own education got you thinking, we hope you'll continue exploring those traces. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.